I am Mexican.
I am Mexicana y Salvadoreña.
I am Latina.
I am Puerto Riqueña.
I am the son of immigrants.
I am the daughter of 2 college grad students.
I am a writer.
I am a college graduate.
I am independent.
I am a high-achieving student.
I am driven.
I am a leader.
Y soy Latino.
Year after year, Latinx students are graduating high school and enrolling in college at increasing rates. According to the California Department of Education, the graduation rate of Hispanic and Latino students in California has increased from 71.9% in 2010 to 2011 to 87.6% in 2019 to 2020. Latinx students made up 43% of in-state undergraduates in public institutions in the 2018-2019 academic year, with more than 1.39 million Latinx students enrolled in California colleges and universities. However, there is still a huge gap that exists among Latinx students with regards to completing college. Of the Latinx adults who have attended college, only 1 in 4 end up earning a degree. If we take a look at the Latinx students who do not complete college, we see that 44% are the first in their family to go to college and lack the support and resources to finish, while others feel the pressure to drop out of college and work full-time instead to financially support their families and relatives.
So I was born in Mexico and I lived there until I was 10, which is when my family decided to move to the United States after my dad got a job offer here. And it was very sudden for me because we didn't have a lot of time to plan it, and it was like a culture shock, but also I felt more free here because I feel more safe and I know I have better opportunities, which is also why I'm always like compelled to try as hard as I can in school to not like disappoint my parents and like mess up all the work that they put into it.
In terms of my mother, she never finished high school. So we depended a lot on my father, but when my parents separated, I didn't have any guidance. The only person in my family that I could actually ask about for things related to school was my oldest sister. And she graduated from high school. She went to UCSD for 4 years. She went to USC for grad school, and she works a stable job now. But she worked really hard to get there, and along with her adjusting to the move to the US, it was really hard for her. And I kind of look up to her for that guidance in terms of education and succeeding, because she's the only role model that I have for that. My mother couldn't give that to me, but because my mother didn't have a good education, because she gave it to her siblings, this was because we didn't have enough financial resources in Panama. So she kind of sacrificed her education, but that doesn't mean that she's not gonna push that onto her daughters, because she pushed that onto my oldest sister, to my middle sister, and to me.
So our parents both got their bachelor's degree. My mom studied industrial engineering while my dad studied mechanical engineering. And while they did get their degrees, my parents actually wanted to study completely different careers. My mom wanted to be a doctor of some sort, while my dad wanted to be a musician. And they weren't given that opportunity just because in Puerto Rico, things, they were happy, but things weren't funded as well, which was why my mom wasn't able to go and get the career that she really wanted, and my dad really couldn't focus and indulge in his music. But that's why they force us so much to go to college and just get a good education.
Where students don't necessarily have a mentorship, they're always first to go, so they don't have the same experience as other students have. So I think that's a major aspect. When I was applying to college, it was completely different from what my dad had to go through. And also my mom I'm first generation on her side. So it was stressful in the way that I didn't really know how to apply for scholarships. I didn't know what resources I must have. And just building up those extracurriculars or stuff like that, I did not fully know how to attain them.
Many Latino parents will have to work late jobs, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. And in that time, that's when you usually do homework. So there's not really, you're just there at home with siblings, and there's not really a structure of where, I have to do my homework because, it's I have to turn it in the next day, but my parents aren't here, so it doesn't really matter, you know? So I think from there, that's where it all starts.
Ironically, I'm a math teacher, but when I was a freshman in high school, I took honors geometry, and my teacher was just very, I guess he just had a lot of misconceptions about me due to my skin color and the fact that I was Latina. And so there were comments that he would make saying, why are you in this class? It's an honors class. Why are you not saying that to the person that has a lower grade than me, but they are white? So that was something I really disliked that class. To this day, teaching geometry just brings me back, because I never ever want to make a student feel like that.
I think the biggest misconception that I run into is that Latinos don't care about education. And I think that is unfair because many of us, our parents are immigrants and they're navigating this new country. And sometimes we just don't have our parents don't have the knowledge of what college is. A lot of, at least my parents don't speak English. So they rely on me and my siblings to kind of translate things for them. So when it comes to education, it's we have to find things out ourselves. And sometimes we don't know what AP classes are, at least back when I was in high school. And sometimes there's this misconception that APs are not for Latino students, they're for other students, Asian students, white students. And so when I was in high school, I remember that in my AP classes, there was only 3 Latinos out of 30 kids. And I would get comments oh, you're a smart Mexican. That's why you're in AP classes. Or, wow, I can't believe you're in AP class. And then sometimes I would get a good score on a test and they'd be so surprised about that. And it's why are you surprised? I care about school and so do many other Latinos. Sometimes it just feels those classes aren't meant for us, so we don't go for them. And I had lots of friends that thought that way in high school, that they were more than capable of doing well in an AP class. They just felt like it wasn't for them because of the things that they've heard.
When you think of the Latinx community portrayed in the media, what comes to mind? You might think of criminals, gangsters, and drug cartels. You might think of feisty, hypersexualized Latinas with heavy accents. Or you may think of Latino immigrants working in the fields as low-skilled laborers. The negative representation of Latinos in the media have led to unfair stereotypes that limit who Latinos are and what they're capable of achieving.
So whenever I do see positive representation, for example, I remember watching this show called Diary of a Future President, where the main character is Latina and she's so successful in school and she tries so hard and she it ends up that she's gonna be the president, right? And I feel that was the first time I could really see myself on TV, because all the other Latino characters were really not that much like me. And seeing how she succeeded and how she worked so hard to get there really inspired me.
I think for me, the one that I feel hits most close to home is that people with accents are less educated. My parents, they understand English fully. They don't use it. At home, we still speak Spanish, but they do speak English with an accent, though. And I've seen it, you go to the bank and I'm with my mom and she's talking to them in English and they're treating her differently than they would me. And it's so funny because a lot of people don't know Spanish was my first language. I had to learn English, but people don't know that because I don't usually have an accent.
I remember one time in my acting class, I had to portray this older woman who was seeking asylum, and I was the only one who had to do it. And I was and then my teacher was white, and I was that was a very stereotypical role, that it's we're very vulnerable people, which is true, but everybody is vulnerable in their own moments. And I think lately, Hispanic people have been stepping out of these roles of just being, like people have said before, waitresses or lower income, and shows that are coming out on Netflix and big movies.
To be Hispanic is just not being a waitress or being the cleaner, but there's more to us than people see. like there's more to every race and ethnicity that people see, and especially for us Puerto Ricans, because we were forced to come here during the economic crash, and many Puerto Ricans were forced to move to the States during Hurricane Maria, and they just see like people just coming in when it's like, no, the United States gave us that opportunity to come, and that's why we're trying to take advantage of it. We're trying to take advantage of all the jobs we can get, all the opportunities that we make for ourselves. And I feel like Bulldogs at Portola should understand that everyone is in the same boat and we shouldn't feel alone.
According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Hispanic and Latinx Californians are the largest racial or ethnic group in the state at 15.6 million in 2020, making up 39.4% of the state population. With an Irvine Unified School District, however, Latinx students only make up 12% of the total student population. With low representation of Latinos in Irvine Unified, combined with the barriers they face within higher education and the media, what steps can we take to overcome these barriers and provide a community of belonging?
I think, in a way, obviously not having mentors. I mean, I haven't had a Latina or Latino teacher since 5th grade, so that's a long time. And, in 5th grade, I didn't really pay attention to that, obviously. But I think, there's not really a connection between me and my teachers. Like, I don't feel that I could talk to them about my struggles. And I'm seeing this because my dad, he's a teacher in Anaheim, and Anaheim is majority of Latinos live there. And he always tells us, how their students are comfortable talking to him and telling them, what's going on at home or anything that they're struggling with. And I don't see that with me. I've never really had that.
I feel like within the Latino community, we need to talk more to each other, because a lot of times people don't want to talk to other Latinos because they feel like they'll be alienated, or sometimes people are like, what if I'm not Latino enough? And that's also something I struggle with. So really just make connections with other Latinos, and even if you're not Latino, try to give up misconceptions. Just know that not everything you hear is true, and there is a lot more to us than what you can see.
I like how we celebrate Chinese New Year here. I feel like for every culture, we could celebrate Day of the Dead and just have an inspirational kind of dance or put ofrendas up. Or for example, in our culture, we could have a mini festival at school. We could do Dia de los Reyes, which is Three Kings Day, and school actually landed on Three Kings Day this year. And when I returned back to school, I was like, what are we doing? I don't feel represented. And that's what I want to share with people, is the fun and excitement that you can have by learning people's cultures. So.
On the more academic side of things, I think in Spanish classes, just being more inclusive to learning new words and learning about cultures, because we learn a lot about, the language specifically. It's the kind of Spanish they use in Mexico, which is not a bad thing, obviously, but it's also just very one way when there's multiple different words for multiple different occasions, and it's just opening the students' knowledge to the language, and that it's not just the Mexican Spanish.
So I think that one message for Hispanic Latinx students is that you are capable of achieving anything. And it doesn't matter what anyone tells you, it doesn't matter what comments people make about you, it doesn't matter what you read in the media or what stereotypes you hear out in the world. You are capable of achieving great things.
I would like to say that we all love a true underdog story. I always root for the underdog. And so in a way, I always felt like the underdog. So I'm sure that the Latinx students at Portola have a sense of I'm less than, or I'm not as good. And in my opinion, it's just, let that motivate you. You know what I mean? As one of the few Latina teachers at this school, there's so much sense of pride that you can get. Just keep pushing through.